Hi, folks. This is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report. And in another time when I was on the radio talking to you, I talked about how I've learned so much this spring. And one of the things that I have learned is, I guess the biggest point, and please try to remember this because I think this is one of the most important things that I can ever tell you, is that that old real estate adage, location, location, location. And I think of all the lures that I tell you about and all the methods of fishing I tell you about, but the most important thing of all is if you can't put your lure where the fish are, I don't care how great it is, I don't care how great you are, you're not going to catch a fish. And that's why these pros, the biggest thing for them is seeing the fish, seeing them either in person or on the graphs or whatever. They don't waste time casting where they don't know that there are fish. So how does this relate to me? Because I don't use graphs. So much of the stuff that people do today is not part of the world of fishing for me. But what I've discovered this spring is that no matter how good a fisherman you think you are, no matter how you've mastered something, if you can't put the lure where the fish is, you're not going to catch the fish. And my buddy Rust, we've talked about this, and we've talked about it for years on the radio, in fishing our tributaries for muskie, how if you can't cast right up to shore, right up to the shore, those muskies, in most cases, aren't going to come out and hit. And why are they on the shore? We think it's because they wait for frogs to jump in from the woods or whatever around them. Maybe it's not that. Maybe it's something else. But we have found that that's where the muskies are. And if we don't fish there, we're not going to catch them. We can drift miles of the Grass River or any of these other rivers. And if we don't pinpoint our cast to the shore, we're not going to catch fish. Well, let me tell you about a recent thing that I've learned and found. I've been out fishing with my buddy Rust. And I pride myself on a lifetime of fishing all over this world and learning different things and being able to catch fish. If I couldn't catch fish, we couldn't have a TV show. But I've also many times been with my buddy Rust, who has not had this background, who has come into fishing later in his life, but yet often is far more successful than me for one reason. One specific reason, because he can cast his lure to the exact spot of where the fish are. We recently spent a day on one of the lakes up in the Adirondacks, and those fish, the fish were all within a couple inches of the shoreline. The shoreline would look almost barren. It would look like it got shallow, but what we didn't realize at first is that underneath the bank, there was water that flowed, and the fish were hiding under there or staying under there, living under there, whatever they were doing, all over the shore of that lake. And other fishermen were fishing, and they weren't catching fish. And Rust was catching fish using a technique that I didn't even think was great. But he was catching fish because he was putting his lure within inches of the shore. And that takes a skill. That takes a skill in casting. And I've come to realize that, and when I teach kids, it's one of the most important things I'm going to teach them, is be able to cast where you think that fish is living. If you can't do it, he's not going to come out and play with you. He's not going to do it most of the time. And I can't stress this enough. And I've realized a lake that I didn't think had a lot of fish, there were fish everywhere, but only within inches of the shoreline. Please remember what I'm telling you, because this can be so important. Now, if you're fishing out in the St. Lawrence in 20 feet of a fast-moving current or whatever, we're not talking about the shoreline. But what I can tell you is if there isn't a school in the area, no matter if you're in the perfect depth, in the perfect region of where you think most of the fish are in the St. Lawrence, if you're not right where that school of fish is, you're not going to catch them. They're not going to come searching for you. You've got to search for them. So, location, location, location. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report.